Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another 1/12 scale figure unboxing and review video. Yes, the 89 Batman video did well. You all let me know that you do like seeing 1/12 scale content on the channel, so we'll be taking a look at yet another S.H.Figuarts release. This is of course Loki, based off his appearance in Avengers 1. Now you will have to let me know what you'd like to see next in terms of 1/12 scale. I know a couple of people have said Mezco, a couple of people have said NECA. There are a whole bunch of figures out there. I won't be trying to pick up everything in 1/12 scale like I do for 6 scale from Hot Toys and third-party companies. It's just not possible. There are so many figures out there, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more specific, a little bit more choosy, if you will. So let me know, potentially, if you'd like to see a review on the S.H.Figuarts Mandalorian in Beskar armor, and the Child as well, because those two are well on my radar. Now, if you are looking to pick up Loki here, or the 89 Batman, they are up for sale right now with toyswonderland.com. The link for that is, of course, down in the description below. They have 12-month payment plans now available if you'd like to space out your figure payments over time. Also, while you are down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as brand new content goes live on the channel. What we are going to do now, though, is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here, of course, we have the box art for Loki himself, a very comic book sort of style image of Loki in, of course, his Avengers 1 movie suit, and an image of the figure as well. Around the back, a couple of promo shots of the figure, and some interchangeable bits and pieces for the head sculpt. I really don't like that grin, but hopefully it's not as creepy in person. I have to say, reviewing these smaller scale figures is a bit of a treat for me. I really like reviewing 1/12 scale figures because it's so much easier to wrangle them on camera. Trust me, trying to unbox a 1/6 scale figure on camera is not an easy feat, whereas these guys are a lot easier to work with. Now here we have Loki himself, looking pretty darn good fresh out of the box. Don't worry, we'll be taking a much closer look at him in just a second. Now you can see he does come with a bunch of bits and pieces in the box there. The hands, of course, have gone flying. Whenever I do unbox a Dragon Ball Figuarts figure, it always happens. You open the clam tray, the hands go everywhere. But nevertheless, what we're going to do now is get all of this stuff laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with Loki. As you can see, a fair amount of stuff, pretty much everything that you'd expect to come with a Figuarts Loki. There are a couple of bits and pieces which are very interesting in the way that they work, but I do have one complaint, and if you've already seen my 89 Batman video, it's of course the lack of display base. This guy comes with no display base. A flight stand would have been nice to have him in the air with his scepter, maybe attacking some of your Avengers. Unfortunately, they didn't give us one. Nevertheless, speaking of the scepter, let's take a look at it first. This is, of course, the longer of the two. You can see the gem is really nice and translucent. The paintwork is fairly basic. It's just a flat gold and a flat silver. Nowhere near as detailed as, of course, something like a Hot Toys piece, for instance. But nevertheless, being a 1/12 scale figure, this, in my opinion, is more than well painted enough for this scale. Now, of course, he does come with the smaller version of the scepter, which is equally as nicely sculpted. Yes, it is a little bit prickly at the top there, but it's been rounded off, so you shouldn't have any huge issues. And of course, the gem is once again translucent. They are really nice. I will be probably having my Loki displayed holding the longer of the two. Now, of course, he does come with the little shackles here as well. This isn't a metal cable. In fact, it's not really a cable at all. It's a piece of sculpted plastic. It's just rather soft and rubbery, so you can sort of maneuver it around, but it's mostly just to be hanging down when you do have his arms connected. The way, of course, that you do that is literally you pull off the hand, then peg it in with this over the top. Very straightforward and a super simple and easy thing to do. Now, he does finally come with a Tesseract. It's a translucent little clear gem here, and it's pretty basic, but what more could you ask for? It does the job, it looks nice, it's the right color, and of course it is the right size. You can use the hands to hold it, and of course you will see that a little bit later in the video. Now let's take a look at some of the head sculpts, starting off with the helmeted one. This is the one that I'm not too sure about. I mean, I can kind of see the likeness, but because of the really goofy expression, it definitely throws me off. Also, that digital face print is a little bit fuzzy, and I don't think it looks all that fantastic. Now, there are some of the other head sculpts which look a little bit better, but let's talk about how modular this helmet piece is. First of all, there is a hair attachment to plug up underneath, and that looks really good. Also, it's flared out, so you'll get a little bit more articulation with it going back rather than just straight down. The helmet itself, mind you, is really nicely done. I love the sculpt, and of course I love the paintwork. I wish they'd done this sort of weathering pass on the gold of the Scepter. It's just a little bit more basic in comparison to this, which looks fantastic. Now, of course, you can split apart the helmet, and then you can have it just be empty. I know there will still be that little internal component there, which you can see, but still, if you want him holding an empty helmet, maybe from the other side, you can just as easily remove the faceplate. The real reason the faceplates come out, though, is so that you can take the one on the normal head sculpt, remove it from the hair, then pop it on the inside, and then you can wear the helmet on a different faceplate. It's a nice gimmick, not one that I think was 100% necessary, but I'm glad they included it, because this way you can interchange the expression. I think that, honestly, is the way I'm going to be displaying my version of Loki. Now, disassembling all of that, putting it back on the hair itself, here we have the regular head sculpt. I think that the hairline might be a little bit too far back. I am seeing a lot of forehead here. Don't get me wrong, I can see the likeness a lot better on this sculpt versus the other one with the kind of creepy expression, but still, it's not 100% there for me. I'm thinking maybe a 90% likeness. You'll have to let me know down in the comments below. Now, of course, to go along with this head sculpt, you do get a hairpiece as well. I don't really think that this works as well as the helmet. You can definitely see the clear separation line there, but at the very least, this will allow a little bit more articulation than having one fixed sculpted piece. So I do like that they've definitely thought of all of the details. Now, of course, you do have this faceplate with the little sort of mouth guard piece that, of course, we see Thor slap on Loki in Avengers Endgame, and of course, we saw it in the first Avengers movie as well. It looks good, it's nicely done. I can see the likeness to Tom Hiddleston there, but still, I think my personal favorite so far has to be this one right here. Nevertheless, what we're going to do now is get Loki himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have Loki standing straight up and down the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And I have to say, at first glance, just standing there, he looks pretty decent, although there is one big flaw that I think this guy has, and he shares it with the '89 Batman. It's the cape. There's no secret. This thing just looked lifeless. It's just hanging there. There's no wire. It looks completely boring and ridiculous, just like it did with the '89 Batman. But at the very least, you could flare his out with the included accessories. Loki's one just looks completely silly in my personal opinion, but we'll touch on that more in just a second. The rest of Loki, though, looks pretty decent. I like the way it's sculpted. I think the paint is pretty much on point. We will be doing a much closer examination, though, in just a second. The head sculpt works very nicely on the body. Overall, it's looking pretty positive. Is it the best 1/12 scale version of this Loki? In my opinion, yes. For now, it is just like the '89 Batman was for '89 Batman, until we get something better. Don't get me wrong, there are still flaws here, but in my personal opinion, this is still the best Avengers 1 Loki that there is on the market. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have Figuarts Loki himself up close and personal. I have to say, for a 1/12 scale figure, I really like the way this looks. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of complaints that I do have, mostly to do with this piece right here, but we'll get to that in just a second. Let's talk about the way the head sculpt fits on the body. From the front, it looks really good. I can see the likeness, the hair looks great, but as soon as you turn it to the side, because of the way they've done the neck joint, you can see there is a gap, and it's just a hollow black gap. It looks weird. I don't like the way it looks. Honestly, I wish they'd painted that connection joint inside their skin tone as well, so it more evenly matched the rest of the neck and head sculpt, because at the moment it stands out, it looks a little bit funky. Now let's take a look at the armor itself. Number one, I love the sculpting. It's really nicely done. It looks just like the outfit in the movie itself, but it's all made of rubbery style plastic. That means when it gets to articulation, which we'll do in just a second, it'll be very, very hindered, especially down here at the legs. This strap, the internal section, I think should have been made out of a pleathery style, very thin material with this edging around the sides there, because as it stands, going forward, pretty much nothing. It is very, very restricted. Let's talk about the paintwork though on the actual rubber pieces. They look great, especially the shoulder pads. They are very nicely done. Just like I said with the helmet, I kind of wish the Scepter had this style of paintwork because it looks old, it looks aged, and it looks detailed. This looks absolutely fantastic. But then again, in terms of functionality, maybe not so great. I do love the texture on the front pieces here, they look really good, but there are some mishaps in terms of the paint apps. You can see around the front there, sort of misses the mark and looks a little bit goofy. Same thing up here on the top, you can see it's missed the little edging piece just a bit. Don't get me wrong, from a distance, it's just fine, but up close, under close super inspection and microscope level, it is very, very obvious. Now moving down to the legs, you can see that on the back side there, in fact on the inside of all of the robes, there's a really nice green, very sort of classic homage to the green of Loki in the comic books. I love the way that looks, but again, I do think some of these at least should have been made out of fabric. The boots themselves, in fact, the rest of the outfit looks really darn good. I love the sculpting and the paintwork is super clean down on the legs here. The rest of it is really, really nicely done. I'm a big fan of how Figuarts have made this figure happen in 1/12 scale. Is it the best Avengers 1 Loki in 6-inch scale? I personally think so. Does it still have its flaws? Yes, absolutely. The biggest one for me is the cape. Look at it. It's lifeless, it hangs flat, it literally looks like a blown up version of a Lego cape. It's just a complete flat bed sheet. I don't know why, at least there wasn't a wire around the edge. I mean, you're gonna hem it anyway, shove a wire inside and let us get a little bit more of a dynamic look, because as it stands, it's just completely lifeless. It literally looks like he's wearing a big old green triangle. I don't like the way that looks at all. Honestly, if I could, I'd swap this out for a nice custom wired cape by Jackson, or even a nice drape one, because as it stands, this one just looks absolutely horrible. I don't know if there's a way that you can remove it without sort of damaging the outfit itself, but if I could, I definitely would, because I really don't like the way the cape looks. Now, just quickly before we move on, because I forgot to show this in the accessory segment, I literally just discovered it, these two pieces are modular as well. So say for instance, you want the open Scepter part on the smaller staff, you can remove these sections and then you can plug it in. It is a little bit fiddly and a little bit challenging to do so. Once you get it in there, you can pretty much customize the Scepter to look however you'd like. That's a nice touch, something that honestly they didn't have to do. This one's a little bit loose, unfortunately, on mine, even with the other sort of spear section there, but as you can see, you can kind of get it to work and it looks pretty darn awesome. As I said, it's a nice touch, something that they really didn't have to throw in, but I'm glad they did. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have my very first Figuarts 1/12 scale figure review that was live on the channel, being of course the 89 Batman, standing alongside Loki himself. I like that these two are kind of in scale. I assume the rest of the Figuarts line are all in scale with each other as well, or close enough at least. My only real experience with Figuarts figures before these two was the Dragon Ball line, and I know that those guys and gals really do scale nicely with one another. Either way, enough about that. These two look pretty darn good standing side by side, and yes, before you ask, that is a custom cape on my 89 Batman. If you'd like to know more about that, go ahead and check out the review on him. It's already live on the channel. And here we have Loki alongside the Mandalorian, this being the Hasbro Black Series version. Do let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see a Beskar Mando Figuarts comparison with the Hasbro version, because I have this guy. In fact, I have pretty much the entire Black Series Mandalorian line thus far, so it'd be nice to see how he stacks up to the Hasbro variants. Nevertheless, as you can see, Mando is significantly taller. Also, his proportions are a lot bigger, a lot chunkier than what we're seeing on Loki here. Loki is a lot more delicate in terms of the construction, looking more like a real-life human compared to the Black Series Mando, looking maybe a little bit over-exaggerated. Nevertheless, I'm sure if you had Marvel Legends figures, they would be slightly too tall to scale alongside this version of Loki. So in my personal opinion, if I was going down the route of collecting an Avengers 1 line, I'd probably personally stick with just the Figuarts line, because they'll hopefully scale better than what you'd get out of the Marvel Legends compared to the Figuarts Loki, and of course the cap and the rest of the line that's coming out. Just going over the articulation on Figuarts Loki. Bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm gonna be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now, starting off with the head itself, there's one ball joint at the top and then one ball joint at the bottom. As you can see, going forward is pretty darn significant, but pretty much nothing going back. Because of that hairpiece, even though it's separate, it means you can get some swivel side to side independent of this piece, but it really doesn't allow it to go up. You do, of course, get swivel, as you saw, and pivot side to side. More than enough range for me personally. You could, of course, detach that lower hairpiece. It would look a little bit funky, but you'd get significantly more range. The arms themselves go up to about there, going forward to about there before they start to bump into this big, chunky shoulder pad there. It's enough for me personally, but again, you might need a little bit more, which means you can drop it down and then get it to go a little bit higher. You do, of course, have a butterfly joint in there, and it does swivel, which kind of serves the purpose, at least, of a swivel at the bicep. You do have a bend at the elbow. I do believe it's a single. It's a super weird design. It's sort of split in half and then one piece moves and one doesn't, but you do get just about 90, and of course a regular Figuarts style joint for the wrist itself. The torso is pretty much fixed because of this strap that goes across the top there. It kind of restricts the range of motion. You can bend it, but you see it does sort of flare out, looks a little bit funny, and it really wants to fight you every step of the way, but you do have swivel, pivot, and a little bit of crunch forward and back. The legs themselves, because of this piece that comes down around the front, pretty much nothing going forward without it being sort of really restricted and fighting you every step of the way. The other side, though, because of that split, goes even further. You do, of course, have a swivel up there, but it's not at the thigh, it's actually at the ball joint hip connection point, so it's a little bit interesting the way they've done that. You do, of course, have a double bend at the knee, which pretty much only gets you 90, and of course, down at the feet here, we do have regular Figuarts style joints for the ankles, a little bit of pivot, not so much forward and back, but we do have toe articulation. Just wrapping up on the Figuarts version of Avengers 1 Loki, there are some really good things about this guy, and also some kind of really not good things. Number one, let's talk about the bad things first. The cape. It's horrible. It doesn't sit right, there's no wire, it's lifeless, it's pretty much a big green triangle that's been stuck to his back. You could, of course, cut it off. There's no super simple, easy way of removing it and then putting it back on without damaging it. You could put a custom wired one in there, which would be my personal preference, because out of the box, that just looks lifeless and kind of upsets the entire balance of the figure itself. Figuarts, or Bandai I should say, can do some things really well. The sculpt work and the paintwork is always pretty darn good, but when it comes to cloth goods, they just seem to not be able to deliver. It's a common theme. Even Hot Toys doesn't make perfect capes. 99% of the time, you do swap it out for a custom one. The same thing can be said for this guy right here. Also, the smiling head sculpt. It doesn't look all that good. The expression is fine at a distance, but when you get up close, it looks a little bit goofy. I much prefer the somber one, and honestly, if it didn't have just that stoic head sculpt, I would have said that this guy isn't worth picking up just with that smiling one, because it comes across a little bit goofy. With the regular head sculpt, though, and the ability to interchange it with the helmet, with the hairpiece, and the mouth plate, I really do like that you can basically have your perfect version of Avengers 1 Loki, depending on how you prefer him to look in your display. That is a really nice touch. Accessories are on point, sculpt and paintwork are on point. It's just that cape which is really rubbing me the wrong way. Nevertheless, I still think this is a really great entry into the Marvel Figuarts line. I am very tempted to go ahead and pick up even more of these Avengers 1 reissue kind of versions. A Cap was also just released, so let me know if you'd like to see a review on him on the channel. Now, if you are looking to pick up this guy, he is going up for sale right now with toyswonderland.com. A link for that is, of course, down in the description below. They have 12-month payment plans now available, so if you like paying off your figures over time, there is some info on that down below. Also, while you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.